Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Candice Marie with Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. Thank you for joining me. It is May 31st, 2021. This is going to be my overview video for the month of June for all of the astrological transits and the energies that you can be expecting. Those of you guys who've been waiting in the chat, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. I apologize. Mercury retrograde is in full effect. I have some fun story times for you guys today also to talk to you a little bit about how it's been affecting me. Obviously, we're a little bit behind schedule, so I apologize. Thank you guys for waiting. Thanks for hanging in there. Hello, everybody in the chat. It's nice to see everybody. How are you guys doing? How are you guys doing? Oh my gosh, are you guys feeling the retrograde? I think it actually technically started yesterday, but this retrograde shadow has been freaking wild. And it's pretty early here. Those of you guys who know me or you've seen some of my videos, usually I try to do them later in the day or even going into the evening. I am not a morning person, so I'm really trying to wake up. I've got my coffee. Yeah, just with Mercury square Neptune, it makes me so sleepy. I just don't want to get up. It's hard for me to wake up, even in the midst of having been up for a couple of hours and having to have meetings at 6:30 a.m. Pacific time today. So I'm kind of, I'm sleepy, so stay with me. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you. Thank you guys in the chat. Oh, so let's talk a little bit about the astrology for June 2021. Hi, hello everybody. Asha, hello, good morning. Mechi, Malaya, KB, Rosemary, Lan, Christine. It's nice to see you guys. Thank you so much for checking in. So let's talk a little bit about just the energies right now, because we're on the heels just coming off of this eclipse that we had in Sagittarius a couple of days ago. It was that full moon eclipse that we had, the lunar eclipse. Really, it was just a lot of shaking out old emotions and old feelings and old feels, but it's closing those chapters, closing those doors of wherever Sagittarius falls in your natal chart. So now we're in that kind of like twist and turn, anything goes time period in between two eclipses. So it's a little bit funky with that and a Mercury retrograde. It's like, you know, and the squares to Neptune. Nothing is clear. There is a lot of glitches. There are a lot of issues that are going on with communication, with travel, with electronics. It's a mess. And I'll tell you guys how it's kind of manifested for some of my life, both with work and also personally. I keep telling clients, like, you know, I don't even have any planets in Gemini or in Pisces, but all these squares are getting me big time, and they really shouldn't be according to my astrology. So even for people like me who understand the energies that are going on right now, Mercury has still gotten me several times over. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about just the themes for June, and then you know how this goes. We'll go transit by transit. We'll take a look at the chart, and we'll talk a little bit about why these certain energies are going to come up, how certain angles are kind of forming with specific planets, and what the themes for June are going to be. At the end, I'll pull some cards for you guys and talk to you a little bit about what you can be expecting for each and every one of the 12 signs for the month ahead. So let's go ahead and get into it. Just some notes that I have. You know, the big theme right now with June, because most of June, at least until the second half, we have a Mercury retrograde, is an opportunity to reevaluate, review, rework, reimagine, to go back and to take a look at certain situations in our life. So while we are in a Mercury retrograde, all of the typical rules apply. The reading the fine print, being really aware before you commit verbally or contractually to anything, because when Mercury is retrograde, we oftentimes like overlook these details, or there's something that we don't see, or there's something that kind of changes. On the flip side, though, if you're somebody who has been in the process for some time of like, well, I want to write a book. Do I want to go back to writing a manuscript? Do I want to go back to considering relocating or moving or looking in a new neighborhood or in a new area? can be a great time to get organized and kind of check off everything on your to-do list. So the one thing that I'll tell you is that there is a lot of overlooking things this month because of Mercury is square to Neptune in Pisces, which is another mutable sign. Mutable signs produce change. They are double-bodied signs, both Pisces as well as Gemini. Gemini, the twins, so there's always two sides to a story, two possible outcomes, two choices, or a fork in the road. And we've got Neptune in Pisces, which is really strong there, also a double-bodied sign, but we have the fish that swim in two directions. So it's like when I think about Gemini and Pisces, Pisces is just very much like an evolved version of Gemini. So both of them are very changeable, and both of them kind of shift quite a bit. So what does Mercury rule? Mercury rules business, conversations, communications, emails, text messages. It can deal with travel and scheduling travel. It can also deal with contracts. Big thing that I see with Mercury in Gemini is contracts, agreements, conversations, meetings, languages. So this is a very unusual Mercury retrograde because it's happening smack dab in between eclipses and with some pretty harsh squares that are happening to Neptune and Pisces. And I see that as like a fog or a haze or a miscommunication or not hearing things right, or, you know, people not hearing each other. So kind of the focus that I'm telling my clients and I'm telling people on internet land is speak less, listen more. Really hear me when I say this. And whether this is just taking time to really sit and be patient, I have to learn this too. It's something that I'm always trying to remind myself. It's like, okay, am I waiting to talk, or am I actually listening? If I'm actually listening, then I can sit and I can retain that information. I'm not planning what I'm going to say or planning my response quite yet. So even in my day-to-day life, I'm trying to tell myself to stop, listen, integrate what somebody is saying, and then speak. Because I feel like on one hand, it's going to avoid a lot of conflicts in the next month, but on the other hand, also for those of you guys who are in some situations where you're not sure how somebody feels, you're not sure if it's mutual in terms of an agreement, if you're not sure if you can trust somebody or trust something, or you're getting vibes that somebody's not being completely forthcoming. The positive side of this retrograde is that there is a lot of room for people to actually expose themselves and show you exactly who they are. So rather trying to have intense conversations and trying to cut to the core of things, because it's going to be rather challenging to do that this month, we benefit from talking less, listening more. We benefit from being sympathetic and understanding and emotional and really getting in tune with our emotions. Because Neptune wants us to do that, and also because, you know, Mercury has been following pretty closely these days with Venus in the square to Neptune. So it has us reminiscing, having lots of emotions, lots of feelings, thinking about the past, getting caught up in our feelings. And so it can be a great time, because Mercury is very cerebral, to reflect and really ask ourselves, are we putting some people, some situations on a pedestal? Are we seeing with rose-colored glasses? Are we seeing people for what we want them to be? Are we seeing situations for its potential? Or are we really overlooking a lot of things that may be red flags, or they may be actually messages from Mercury, from Hermes, that's like, hey, heads up, like this is not a good idea. And that can manifest as a series of strange synchronicities that you see with the universe. It can manifest as a gut feeling, an intuitive feeling, a dream. Things like that are going to start coming up quite a bit. And I've seen it so active in this last month. I'll tell you guys my Mercury Venus square Neptune story in a second, because it definitely manifested pretty bang on with the astrology. You want to look also for possible issues with electronics. You know, there's going to be a lot of new tech drops that are going to happen in the months ahead as a result of the eclipse that's coming in Gemini. So be aware that if you're due for an update in a cell phone or a laptop, computer, stuff like that, wait a little bit until closer to the second half of July, when we're out of this square and out of this shadow, because I feel like you may buy something too soon. You may buy something and not get coverage on it. Like you might not have insurance and it could get damaged. You may buy something and then realize that, you know, you actually need a different software or it needs an update. So there's going to be a lot of things like that will happen. Look for errors in emails, texts, contacts, contracts, anything also that may need to be edited. Like when I think of Gemini, I think of like, you know, emails and things that we send to people. We might hit reply all to everybody on accident, have a meltdown. You might send an email to the wrong person. You might send a text message to the wrong person. There can be lots of butt dials and wrong numbers and things like that that we can get. Losing information and losing contacts also can definitely be a thing. So if you're somebody who your life revolves around your contacts and keeping all of your devices kind of connected, might be a really good time to just back everything up and make sure everything's good to go. On the flip side, it's a great time also to go and like clear out old contacts and get rid of people you don't talk to anymore, and go and update apps and softwares and things of that nature. So be aware of that. And tone in emails. I don't know about you guys, but it's like, you know, there can be so many issues in communication because people are literally or figuratively getting lost in like, you know, translation. So there can be a lot of miscommunications because of language barriers. There can be a lot of miscommunications also because, you know, people don't understand the tone. So if you think about having an important conversation or starting an important conversation via text or via email, may not always be the way to go. Some of the tone may actually be misconstrued or taken the wrong way. So really picking up the phone and having a conversation and cutting through all of that can be probably the best solution. Equally also talking to people in person or just waiting at least until the end of this month and early July for you to have those more kind of heart-to-heart things. Right now it's more about intellect and feelings and where these two have friction, because Mercury is the mind and Neptune has more to do with our emotional or our spiritual bodies. Certainly when we see squares like this, there's confusion, right? There's confusion. There's, you know, mental and emotional delays. There is also a lot of feeling like we don't know which end is up. So I keep telling people it's almost like having emotional vertigo. It's like one minute you're fine and then the next minute you get sidelined and you're totally thrown off. You want to just be cautious with signing contracts, you know, read the fine print. That's something that's very important. This is going to be much more challenging for mutable signs. So if you are a Gemini or a Virgo or a Sag or a Pisces, this energy is definitely going to be a little bit more challenging and confusing for you as a result of the squares. So be aware of that. You also want to watch out for financial scams, false prophets, and spiritual manipulation. So why am I bringing this up? We'll get into the specific aspects, but you know, right now Mercury and Venus are moving very quickly and closely together in Gemini. Very soon it will, Venus will actually move into Cancer. But for right now, those two together in a square to Neptune really can manifest as financial scams and even crimes. It can manifest as challenges in trying to book trips or events or things like that towards the end of the year or in the future. It can bring about a lot of like mixed up schedules and making errors even when booking things. So if you are going to be booking trips, if you're going to be booking travel, double and triple check everything. Make sure the flights connect, make sure that it's the right day, make sure it's the right time. When in doubt, also get that trip insurance. I really recommend it. And be mindful that there may be delays even in booking some things because the world in a way is still just beginning to kind of start to open up. You know, with Mercury square Neptune, a lot of people are not going to be sure whether or not they feel comfortable traveling. And then on the flip side, there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to travel and they're not going to really worry about the restrictions of the world. So we're just going to see a lot of, I think, extreme polarity with how travel is being handled. Some places will open wide up, while other cities and places are going to be a little bit more cautious. So there's going to be a lot of misinformation as well. When I think of Mercury, that's the media, right? That's newspapers, magazines, websites, blogs, the news. And with squares to Neptune is what's on TV. So I'm expecting a lot of discrepancies in terms of how people perceive events unfolding over the next month. There's going to be a lot of falsified or manipulated information, so be mindful of that. Consider your sources, check everything, you know, keep an open mind, but don't go jumping to conclusions, because I believe a lot of events over the next month are going to be fabricated, both out in the world, but also in terms of our interaction one-on-one with other people. Keep in mind that, you know, Neptune seems to be more about our perception and Mercury is more about the facts. So as these two clash, everybody is going to have their own interpretation or their own perspective of how things are playing out in the world. And it reminds me of like the telephone game where when you tell somebody a story and then it's getting passed on and passed on and passed on, each individual time you pass the story on, it changes a little bit, it's manipulated, things are fabricated, other details are left out. By the time you actually hear the story, it's so far from the truth, it's like a completely different situation. That is how I see June. So we really want to consider our sources, try to stay away from gossiping, try to stay away from talking about things unless we really know things to be true. But equally, this can be a time where some of us may know the truth, or we may know how we truly feel, or we may see a vision, but we want to keep that very close to our chest, and we don't want to kind of show our cards, so to say. And we might hold back with telling people how we feel, or we might hold information back until we see things play out. I feel like a lot of people are going to do this. Don't go telling people yet, especially if there's sensitive information that you don't want being relayed to other people. So secrets are going to be exposed, kids. That's definitely something that's going to happen. We also watch out for financial scams because of Mercury and Venus conjunct square Neptune. So if you're transferring funds to people you don't know, if you're buying or selling things to people you don't know, we want to avoid that. We want to avoid giving your passwords, giving your digital information. I talked about this a little bit recently, but I do believe a very big information breach is coming. So keep that in mind. Obviously, we can't prevent those things. All we can do is just be really on top of our cyber awareness and possibly focus more on being able to update our passwords and strengthening our online security. So there's that. All right. So also spiritual manipulation and false prophets. You know, I can't really talk about Neptune without spirituality. And with Mercury square, I feel like it's going to be a lot of people repeating things, but not necessarily integrating that work or that spiritual work in their day-to-day life. You want to be really cautious about whose advice you buy. It might be a time where there's just more of a focus and an emphasis in the spiritual community on giving readings and predicting the future and telling people what's going to happen, and people getting a multitude of readings from different people or getting different perspectives from different people. So there can be confusion because people are getting advice about how to handle their life situations or how to navigate their spiritual life from a variety of sources, and they may be conflicting. Be careful also with just, you know, with who you choose to get a reading with. If you get readings, if that's something that you do, you might be changing it up and seeing new people, and you might find that some people relate and other people are just completely so far off, but you've invested Venus in that reading or in that that perception of what they see. So there's that can take place. And spiritual manipulation, you know, it's really great to see that astrology and metaphysics and all of these things, you know, and this has been happening for several years now, are kind of at an all-time high. But what I keep telling people is be careful whose advice you buy. Be aware that not everybody is really going to be as clear when it comes to the information, as clear when it comes to relaying that information to other people, especially on the internet. Be careful with booking trips, new technology, software downloads, upgrades, whether or not you update some software and there's some kind of an issue and there ends up being, you know, like, for example, for today, we were trying to do the stream and we had to update one of our softwares. So we went to go in to open up the update to be able to do the stream, and it wouldn't connect, it wouldn't update. So for whatever reason, if you're somebody who is having to do that, double and triple check everything. If you need an IT person, get an IT person to help you so you don't lose information, so you are able to get into some of your softwares or some of your applications. If you're somebody who is involved in writing, publishing, teaching, education, this can also be a time where it's really great to review educational plans, review courses, classes, to go back and edit things. Not necessarily the best time to be having a book launch, having a course launch, unless this is something that has been planned in advance for some time. So rushing to get a website published in the next month, for example, or rushing to go and get a book deal, things like that can be more confusing. Granted, some of you guys will use the retrograde to wrap that up and like actually get ready to launch something just thereafter. But starting a business right now or launching something is not necessarily the most ideal because of the squares to Neptune. It can be great though for like writing music, writing poetry, painting, creating, drawing, film, photography, because that Venus square Neptune is very soft and dreamy and kind of whimsical and creative. So that's fun. One other thing that I feel like is pretty prominent, and I touched on this a little bit in my last live, is just ghosts from the past, right? So Neptune is ghost, phantoms, like all of those apparitions and all of those things. And so with Mercury and Venus conjunct in Gemini retrograde, revisiting the past, reviewing the past, past conversations, people who we used to date, people who we used to be friends with, people who we used to see all of the time. So with Mercury retrograde, certainly themes of people from the past can come up, but because of the close conjunction to Venus, it's more of like a romantic kind of energy. You might be thinking about people from the past, you might run into them, you might see them. There might be just a wave of like all kinds of people you haven't seen in some time on your social media, under people you may know. There can also be people from the past sending you messages, emails, reaching out. That is the case with retrogrades generally, but more so with this one. And it seems very confusing. And at times it can also be stuff that's like bad news bears with the square to Neptune. I've seen this manifest for clients as just a lot of like long lost loves popping up out of the blue, but they're married or they're in a situationship. So you do want to be careful with that not everybody's intentions are going to be clear. Not everybody's intentions are going to be good. There is a lot of wandering and people who may still be coming off the heels of the pandemic who have realized they're not happy in their relationship and they're seeing what else is out there. So keep in mind, like the grass is not always greener in these situations. And I'm seeing a lot of clients that are like jumping ship in their job, right? Because they think that there is something else that's better and they've got this super holy cow, this could be an amazing life-changing opportunity. They quit their job and then they find out, oh, just kidding, we filled the position. Like this kind of stuff that's happening. Or people who are getting ready to move cross country and then they put a deposit on a home and they're getting everything ready and then they find out that it was a scam. Clients who are in the process of wanting to leave a partnership or wanting to leave a relationship and then they reconnect with that person from 10 years ago and they're like, okay, we're going to both leave our, husband and our wife for each other, and then they pull out, but you've already told your husband that you're leaving him. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we're going to see in the next month. So talk less, listen more. People are going to show you exactly who they are. Take your time. Be cautious, especially of people who come back from the past. Not all doors are meant to be open. And there was a lot of people who are in their feelings, but they're very indecisive and they don't know what they want yet. Fork in the road situations. So, especially coming into the eclipse later this month, we're going to definitely see that new information comes to light during the eclipse. And I'll talk a little bit about that today and in a future video. But Gemini is always duality, right? So I see a lot of people are going to come to this fork in the road where it's like, do we do it here? Do we do it there? Do we move here? Do we move there? Do I take this job? Do I take that job? So leave room for that information to come to light, especially closer to right around the time of the eclipse, the 10th, like let's say through the 15th of June, because there's more information that needs to shake out at that time before we make decisions. And because there will be several squares back and forth for Mercury and Neptune, it's an opportunity to reevaluate and really decide and decipher whether or not that information is valid, or if that's a valid option or that's a valid choice. Lost in translation type feeling, figuratively or literally. There can be breakdowns in communication because of language barriers or online, or people having technical issues, being able to communicate on a phone, breaking cell phones, moving meetings, not seeing that we double booked ourselves, or not getting that email from our team that we're supposed to be at a meeting and it goes in our spam file and then we miss it and they're like, where were you? That kind of stuff is definitely going to be coming back up. Let's see. Working through miscommunications with other people. So definitely it can be a good time to sit and reflect on how things make us feel, and share our emotions with other people, especially when words don't seem to be put together so easily, if it's harder for us to communicate and we're just deep in our feelings, there are some time, and for some people, they're going to have issues being able to find words for how they feel, and they're just going to find that they just can shut down and get really emotional and start crying and not know how to express themselves. And if that's the case, that's okay. We definitely see lots of waterworks anytime there's aspects to Neptune. Water issues and electronic glitches. Okay, so here's my story time. I'm going to kind of segue just for a second from this. So a couple things that have happened in this last week that made me yell and scream at Mercury. One of which was last week I was getting ready to film the Midheaven podcast that I do with Mike, the Peace Dealer. He comes over to my house every 2 weeks, and we shoot, or every other week we shoot like two episodes. And I had just gotten back recently from a road trip, and I have a big, like, Gucci, obnoxious purple patent leather bag. It's huge. I mean, it's like the size of this table. And it's where I keep all of my makeup and all of my stuff in it. The last couple of weeks, I was like, oh, I need to do a Sephora haul. Like, I need to buy some, like, new makeup stuff. Those of you guys who know me, I'm, like, a huge makeup freak. I love collecting all that stuff. So I've got a big bag with all my makeup in it. Haven't unpacked it from my road trip. I've just been keeping it in my bathroom, and Mike was coming over, and I was just like, I'm going to throw it all together and put it in my shower. Stupid move. And mentally I was like, don't leave it here, because Mercury square Neptune, you're going to get all of this stuff soaked. Do the podcast, totally forget about it. The next day I get up in the morning and I go to turn on the shower, and I'm like listening to my astrology videos and hanging out, screwing around, getting ready to get in the shower. And by the time I open up the shower, which is probably 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, I start screaming because I see my entire bag is completely flooded with water. It wasn't like, oh, it was kind of wet. Like, the entire inside of the bag was so heavy, I couldn't do anything but turn it over and dump all the makeup out. So I'm just like freaking out. I've got hundreds of dollars of makeup that's in this bag. Everything is just soaked. The guys probably don't get it, but girls, imagine taking literally all of your makeup and just sticking it under the faucet, because that's basically what I did. So I'm crying. I'm bringing it out of the tub. I'm pissed. I'm throwing things. I open up my compacts, and they're like MAC and Chanel, and I'm just pouring water out of my compacts. And it was right when Mercury and Venus were squaring Neptune. And I'm like a very Venusian chart. And I couldn't help but just start laughing, because I was like, number one, I was already thinking about having a complete new makeup haul. And number two, probably should have never put it in here. And I knew I shouldn't have put it in there, and I did it anyway. So I managed to save brushes, but everything else pretty much got trashed. So I threw all kinds of stuff away, and it just totally crushed my heart. So that was my Mercury-Neptune square. Since then, also, I've spilt all kinds of stuff near electronics, and I just got done getting a package from Amazon today, actually. I bought a bunch of water-safe, like sealed stuff for my cell phone, so I can put my cell phone in it, so I can put my iPad in it, so I can actually be around the pool and like be kind of safe, because I'm very accident prone, so I'm hoping that will... I couldn't help but laugh. I was like, God damn it, Hermes. And I'm just like yelling and screaming and having a meltdown in my bathroom. It was definitely something to watch. It was colorful. And then on top of that, I'm going back and forth with people, like, you know, in a different part of the world, trying to arrange travel for later this year, trying to plan a trip for the fall, and, you know, going back and forth and trying to set up dates and times and coming up with a budget. And like, somebody's attaching the budget 2 or 3 times, going like, oh, I updated it, and it was like consistently wrong. All of the fees and everything was wrong, and we were trying to go back and forth and trying to schedule this. And finally I was just like, this is just not in the cards. I'm just going to completely stop. I have a bad feeling about this, and take a step back before I sign on for like really investing quite a bit to go on a trip later this year and just have everything screwed up. So since then, I've been trying to find other people to kind of help me arrange some of those plans, and that's why I was up early this morning having a meeting. So even for me, right, even for somebody who understands that these squares are happening and is aware of it and is talking about it on a day-to-day basis, it's still getting me. So if it's still getting me, then I have a feeling that it's probably getting a lot of other people as well. So be careful when it comes to water damage, especially around electronics, especially in cars, laptops, phones, dropping phones in the pool, things like that. If you're going to be around water, consider getting something waterproof or something that can be sealed, or just don't put all of your makeup in the shower, you know, right? We're going to see a lot of changes in relationship dynamics. And this is something else that I kind of noted, especially as a result of Mercury squaring Neptune. It's people thinking about how they feel. This impending eclipse that we're going to have in mid-June is also going to be at 19 degrees, which I relate to more of a Libra degree, dealing more so with relationships, partnerships, and information pertaining to relationships, and where we can learn to be more sympathetic and understanding of one another, or not allow ourselves to avoid having certain hard conversations that actually need to happen. So there's that. I would just recommend keeping an open mind and being receptive of unexpected information, being receptive of plan B or plan C in some situations, be open to making changes, and that there can be situations that manifest over the next month that may not necessarily be how we saw our life playing out or how we saw a situation going, but there may be options that present themselves that are actually solutions to things that we've been dealing with for some time. New information coming to light, especially as a result of the eclipse that's coming. That eclipse will be Sun and Moon conjunct in Gemini, and it will be square Neptune. But at the time of the eclipse, Mercury will be retrograde, conjunct the Sun and the Moon, shining a light and bringing light to information that we may not have been aware of, or some other second chapter to whatever has been playing out really over the last 6 months. Just look for travel glitches, travel delays. You know, that can be something else that can manifest and can happen. Be super, super, super mindful of bookings, because I have a feeling that people are going to book things and they're going to be overbooking themselves, or they're going to be in a situation where they're reserving rooms or they're reserving cars or things like that, and it may fall through. So you want to just double and triple check everything. All right. So that's my spiel about what the June themes are. Now let's go transit by transit and talk a little bit about them briefly, so you have an understanding of why these energies are coming to be. So we're going to start off with June 2nd. On June 2nd, we have Venus that moves into Cancer. Venus is very happy in a water sign. It's going to be nice having Venus in Cancer. I think it's going to have us more emotional. I also feel like with its trines to Jupiter early in the month, it's big love. Lots of feels, lots of emotions, lots of healing emotionally. That's also going to happen. Expansion in relationships, expansion in travel. This is very great if you are a Cancer or a Pisces or a Scorpio. If you're a water sign, you're really going to be loving all of this water early in the month. Then on the 3rd, the Sun in Gemini is going to trine Saturn in Aquarius. So the Sun in Gemini is shining a light on being busy, moving around, being mobile, exchanging, sharing ideas, communicating. With a trine to Saturn in Aquarius is a wonderful time to really have important conversations, lay the groundwork intellectually or communication-wise for where we are going. Saturn wants to be able to help us build towards the future. And with Saturn in Aquarius, it's a collective goal. So you might be talking with a group, with friends, you might be talking with business associates about what an overall theme may be that's shaping up for the rest of the year. That same day, Venus in Cancer will trine Jupiter in Pisces. So that's that really sweet trine. That's like a really harmonious aspect. Jupiter makes things bigger, and Venus just wants to love and it wants to nurture. So that's really lovely. Lots of people that might be traveling to visit family or expanding their home or making changes in their home. I could see that happening as well. Then on June the 5th, we've got Mercury in Gemini square Neptune in Pisces for the 2nd time. So we've been dealing with that this whole last week. So it's coming into that 2nd square. You might see just a kind of like almost like a deja vu, like, wait, I've been here before, or I got this feeling, or I've already had this conversation, and it's coming back in some way, which is kind of unclear. I've seen this manifest for me on a personal level with just a lot of really wild dreams. Very symbolic, very specific in terms of dates, people, numbers, even all kinds of weird things that have been coming up for me in dreams. That same day, this is definitely going to pack a punch, and this is one of the more kind of intense transits for the month. This is going to be Mars in Cancer in opposition to Pluto in Capricorn. Now, I talked about this a little bit in my last live, but basically Mars in Cancer is very domestic. It's homey. It's about home, family protection, emotional protection, Mars isn't so happy in Cancer because it's a water sign. And those of you guys who have seen crabs, you know, they kind of walk side to side. They don't go straight forward. So there can be some sense of being a little passive aggressive and kind of standing off and then kind of getting crabby, so to say. With that being an exact opposition to Pluto and Capricorn, these are the two badasses of astrology. Mars wants war and Pluto wants death and regeneration. So when these two come into an opposition, you want to be very, very careful with anything that involves heat, anything that involves cutting, blades, stuff of that nature, especially if you're doing work around the house, you're cooking even. Be really careful with that. Burns and cuts and lacerations definitely are within the realm of Mars. In Cancer and in Capricorn, this is also dealing with our challenges on a domestic level and how that affects our career. So for example, unfortunately for some people, this is manifesting as like, you know, the kid's homesick and they have a virus and like there's nobody to watch the kid and you're supposed to be going to work, and then there's conflict with your boss because you need to stay home and take care of your family. It can also manifest as like being away on a work trip and there being some kind of crisis at home. You just see a lot of, unfortunately with Mars opposed Pluto, strife, war, pain. You also see disappointment, power struggles, violence. And I think a lot of what's kind of shaping up, at least in the Middle East right now, is just more or less kind of a reflection of that energy, unfortunately. And Capricorn being government officials or elders, superiors, people who are supposed to be in power, and Mars in Cancer being families, the domestic world, home, women, children, mothers. It can manifest as just, you know, people having a lot of challenges dealing with that kind of dynamic and that axis opposing one another. You want to just be really aware of your environment. You want to avoid conflict. You want to avoid any crime, any sketchy areas, any people who might have a tendency to kind of pop off. We want to diffuse and de-escalate any conflict during that time. That'll be kind of hanging out for a couple of days. It really starts to heat up really right around the 3rd, and it's going to be pretty active until about a week later. But it will be exact on the 5th. Now we get to June the 10th. This is what everybody wants to hear about, so I'm going to talk about it briefly. I will do a video next week about this eclipse in depth, but this is going to be the new moon in Gemini solar eclipse. This will be taking place at 19 degrees, and Gemini, like I said, it's about information. It's about contracts, communications. This is a new moon, so it's a new opportunity. Being that it's an eclipse, it's on steroids. So we just came out of a full moon. We're wrapping up chapters emotionally. Now this is a solar eclipse. Action happens, especially if you are a Gemini anywhere between, let's say, 17 and maybe 22 degrees, especially if you have any other planets in air signs around those same degrees. If you're a Libra, you're an Aquarius, this can be very beneficial for you. And with Mercury's conjunction to the sun that day, we are going to receive a piece of information that we either didn't see before, we didn't see coming, an email that throws us off guard, a phone call that is full of shocking information, or something that we didn't know. Whatever is playing out revolving around that eclipse, it will take about 6 weeks to totally 6 months for it to totally manifest. So eclipses, you know, they come in pairs. It's when doors close and doors open, and whatever it is, it's usually for good. So if you're just coming out of this last week or two, lots of endings, wrapping up chapters, clearing stuff up, dealing with emotions, this new moon is going to give you the opportunity to have a clean slate, come back to the table with a plan. Because of this new information that comes to light, you're going to be better informed and you're going to be able to make a better decision. And for many people, it'll manifest as having a second option or a second choice, right? That day with the sun conjunct Mercury, I really feel like it's just a huge information drop that might happen in the world. There's likely to be something that comes out or comes to light that is rather shocking, or something that we were not aware of or we did not see coming. All right. So now we move on to June 11th, and this day Mars is actually, well, within a couple of hours, Mars is going to move into Leo. So Mars in Leo, prideful, boastful, romantic, dramatic, fun, passionate, all of these things that come with the territory of Leo. And what's going to be kind of fun, it's later this month, especially right around, I think, the 11th through like the 16th, Mars and Venus will be conjunct in Leo. So so fun, so romantic, rolling out the red carpet. Definitely an amazing time. It's not going to be short of some other things, because having those planets come into conjunction means that they're going to oppose Saturn and also square Uranus. So just a word to the wise for the fixed signs: pay attention. But yeah, Mars moves into Leo that day. And then on the 13th, and on the 13th, we have, there we go, that day. On the 13th, we have the Sun in Gemini square Neptune in Pisces. And so that is the issues that we're going to have with, first of all, clarity. We don't have a lot of clarity when the Sun squares Neptune. Our perception can be off. The way that we hear something or see something can be off. There can be a miscommunication. There can be a misunderstanding. There can be a lot of crime and other things that crop up during that time too. I see it being more so about our mental versus our emotional, though. It's playing off of some of the same themes with Mercury square Neptune. So perception's not clear that day. Just be mindful of that, guys. Moving on to the 14th of June, we are then going to have Saturn in Aquarius square Uranus in Taurus. This is the second time that it has happened this year. You want to reflect back on what was going on in February of 2021 when we had all those gangbusters of planets in Aquarius coming into some uncomfortable angles with Uranus and Taurus. Whenever we see those squares, it was very similar to some of the stuff that was going on during the Capitol riots early in the year, and then in February when we saw all that chaotic stuff going on with the Robin Hood traders. Why? Because Saturn deals with structure, organization. Saturn in Aquarius is groups, networking, the internet, also technology. And a square to Uranus and Taurus is innovations in finances, innovations in, what we find beautiful, what we find practical, how we treat the earth, and money stuff. So I'm imagining mid-June is going to be a little wild, and we're going to see like a second act as to whatever came in February. I'm imagining the markets are going to be very volatile, whether they go up or they go down. There is always some kind of unexpected clash that happens when you see these two kind of square off. In the fixed signs, they're very reluctant to change. If you are somebody who's involved in investing, if you are somebody who has a lot going on in stocks, whether you do day trade or whether you're somebody who's following some of the crypto markets, pay attention to all of your settings. Make sure that you have everything set up. If you have orders in or if you have stuff to sell at certain levels, make sure all of that is good to go. What I'm predicting is that there are going to be issues getting on certain platforms online. People may want to suddenly buy or sell. Websites and apps may shut down. They may have delays. They may get flooded with people. There's going to be issues getting resources in or out of something. It can happen with a big bank. It can happen with the stock market. We're going to have to see. Then on the 20th, we have Jupiter going retrograde in Pisces. And so at this point in time, Jupiter has kind of been in Pisces for about 2 months, feeling these kind of vibes of being more optimistic, more mystical, more magical, manifestations becoming a reality, people learning more about metaphysics, people becoming more sensitive and more aware. So now that it's going retrograde, it will eventually dip back into Aquarius and it will return at the end of this year back into Pisces. So at this point, we've gotten a little piece of the puzzle as to what Jupiter is going to give us next year. It was almost like a bit of a preview, so to say. The sun in Cancer this day also, the sun moves into Cancer. So this is technically the summer solstice. So for those of you guys who are into ritual, this is a great day for ritual. It's a wonderful time to be focusing on emotional healing, baths, clearing, womb healing, clearing your home, setting intentions for the summertime. It's that segue into initiating new energy. And under the guise of Cancer, it's emotional. So that's going to be fun. On the 21st of the month, Venus in Cancer is going to trine Neptune in Pisces. super emotional, super watery. It's super, super watery. I really like it. I also like that that day the moon is in Scorpio. So we're going to see a trigger of a grand water trine, great for intuition, great for painting, being around the family, taking care of animals, just having a lot of like love and a lot of emotional romance kind of going on. So that's fun. Great time to go to the beach too, or to be doing anything that involves water. On the 22nd of the month, Mercury goes direct in Gemini. Yay! Mercury retrograde is technically over, although the shadow is going to go clear into about the first 10 days of July. But if you're one of those people who wants to wait until Mercury goes direct before you sign a lease or a contract, try to do that anytime after the 22nd of June. But if it were me, I would wait until Mercury comes out of the Neptune squares. That's just a bit of advice. But yeah, once Mercury goes direct, I think that communication and travel and plans and everything becomes a little bit more clear. So that's going to be quite lovely. Followed by the 23rd, the sun in Cancer will trine Jupiter in Pisces. That's really fun, optimistic, gives us the opportunity to travel. It gives us the opportunity to expand, and I think to be more aware of our emotions. That's what I'm really kind of taking from all of these aspects in Cancer to Neptune in Pisces. Venus in Cancer that same day will oppose Pluto in Capricorn. So that is a rather intense transit. It's quite similar to what we spoke about a little bit earlier about Mars making an opposition to Pluto. But Venus is more finances, love, money, relationships. I see this is also, it can be connected to business. For Mars to make an opposition to Pluto and then Venus to make an opposition to Pluto, it may come and manifest as needing to make physical changes and then dealing with the emotions later, you know, Venus. It can also be about just challenges in relationships, obsessive love, people who are fixated on people, obsessed with a financial situation, experiencing power struggles in regards to that. You want to watch out for, you know, manipulative stuff going on in relationships and people projecting things onto you. I could definitely see that with Venus trine Neptune in opposition to Pluto. So watch for that. On the 24th of the month, we then have a full moon in Capricorn. Great time to get down to business. This is going to be happening around 3 degrees of Capricorn, so it will make aspects to Uranus and Taurus. Lightly, it's within a 10-degree orb, but still innovative and an opportunity to change and really focusing on a lot of our long-term or our professional goals. On the 25th of the month, we have Neptune going retrograde in Pisces. This will be a retrograde that's going to go on until later in this year. Basically, when Neptune goes retrograde, similar to when Pluto or Saturn goes retrograde, we can be able to start to cut through the fog. Like, this is a planet that I think it is easier to deal with when it is retrograde. Reevaluating our emotions, seeing where maybe we've been delaying or self-sabotaging or holding ourselves back, and not wanting to see certain situations for what they are. More on that later in the month. We'll go deep into that. Then on the 27th, Venus is going to enter into Leo. And it's going to follow closely with Mars. So like this conjunction that the two are having will actually not manifest and take place until July. For some reason, I thought it was going to happen in June. Probably because I just got done doing a whole like summer video where I was talking about all of the aspects. So that won't really manifest until closer to like mid-July, but just know that having those two there at the end of June is still going to be really romantic, really magical, really fun, really playful, great for dating, great for art, creativity, artists, playing with children, all of that stuff. So it's going to be an interesting month ahead. We've got quite a bit of squares to work through. Some of those squares are still going to manifest into July. So I get the feeling that the energy just starts in June and then we start to kind of work everything out actually the following month. Those of you guys who have followed me in the past, if you follow me on my social media, I have been doing, for the last several years, I usually talk a little bit about the new moon and the full moon. I would write an article, and then I would also do tarot scopes. I'm not doing that now, so I have time for my other film projects and also so I can come and do this weekly video for you guys. But I do want to be able to start integrating the tarot into my videos, because not a lot of people know that my readings are a little different. I practice evolutionary astrology, both from an evolutionary and a predictive state, like kind of perspective. But I also read tarot cards. I've been practicing for almost 14 years on both subjects. And what I like to do is just let all of the 12 signs know with the tarot a little bit of what they may be dealing with in the month ahead. If you like my reading style, check out my links below. You can see my website. You can get on my schedule. I've got some time left in July and in August. If you want to book with me, I'm happy to read for you and take a look at your chart. I also practice solar return charts, or we can do synastry, composite readings, all kinds of fun stuff. My sessions are a combination of what I see clairvoyantly, working with the tarot and with the astrology. So let's go ahead and get into it and just get a couple of cards out so we can see what each of the 12 signs are going to be expecting for the month of June. All right, Aries, let's take a look. So what does Aries need to know for June 2021? Okay, this is the Queen of Swords. So I see this as just communicating, like needing to communicate, like needing to get something out, needing to have an important conversation. It totally makes sense for your astrology. You know, it can be a contract negotiation, anything of that nature. It can also be you dealing with another earth sign, an air sign woman. So it can be like a Libra, or it can be an Aquarius, or it can be a Gemini that you're having to go back and forth with and talk about. Swords are interesting things because they can be used for defensive, tactics, but it can also be used to draw a line in the sand. Really, the choice is yours. So when it comes to your words this month, how you communicate, how you express yourself, and being really clear when it comes to your boundaries, it's very important that you have these conversations. Okay? All right, for Taurus. And also, guys, this can be your sun, your moon, and your rising. So you can listen to all three. Okay, Taurus. So Taurus, for you, where all of this energy in Gemini is, it's in your second house. It deals with your finances. It deals with money. So what does Taurus need to know for the month ahead? Okay, the Garden. This is known as the World card in the traditional Rider-Waite deck. Completing something, completing some kind of negotiation, completing a contract, fulfillment, right? Especially with all that energy in your second house. It's, what do I value? Like, what's important to me? Like, how can I find more of it? How can I complete these cycles? How can I bring more in? Some kind of decision that's going to be made. The World is one of the best cards in the tarot. It does talk about everything kind of coming together, but coming together because it's something that you have earned, and it's about being successful. All right, so let's look at Gemini. Happy birthday to the June Gems. All this energy is going through the first part of your chart, so can be a time where you're a little bit more tongue-tied. I can also see this as a time where maybe you're having challenges or issues communicating effectively, like you feel like people don't hear you, or maybe you're changing your mind. Yeah. So the card that I get for you is the Two of Coins. Really, it's about, like literally, it's like juggling more than one situation, more than one person, more than one thing, trying to weigh things out. Like if you have to make a really important decision, whether it involves like your relationships or like where you're going, what direction you're going in, making a change also to your appearance or anything of that nature, your hands can be full. You could be kind of going back and forth and back and forth. Take your time to really make a decision. Instead of sticking with two things long term, see what is and isn't working, and where you're juggling too much and where your hands are full, because it's going to feel like there's this pressure like this whole month for you to make a choice, and you may go back and forth and change your mind several times, but in reality you want to choose whichever is going to be the most like the less hassle, like something that's not going to make you work so hard, All right, and so for Cancer, this is a lot of energy in your 12th house. Gemini is your 12th house. So it's really kind of dealing with your mental state, what's going on with you in a dream state, something that you're wrapping up, or dealing with some kind of private situation, a private matter. It's about spiritual growth, reflections on your dreams even. So for eclipses and things that happen here, energy that happens here, things come to a close, and it can definitely send you on a bit of a tailspin. So just be aware that like if something suddenly ends, it can kind of really throw you off kilter, and it can be something that really is mentally challenging for you, but it's meant for you to be pushing through, because it's almost like the 12th house gets cleared because that needs to be cleared. It was an obstacle that needed to go. So what does Cancer need to know for the month ahead? Ten of Swords. Had a feeling. Ten of Swords can be a painful ending. It can be a challenging ending. For some people, it can be saying goodbye to someone, to something. It can also be feeling like disappointment, or perhaps even somebody who betrayed your trust, or somebody who stabbed you in the back. You know, I don't like saying that, but we do say the 12th house is the house of hidden enemies. The nice thing is that whatever comes to light, or whatever you become aware of, you needed to know, so that way you could sever and you could cut this situation off. So do look for an ending there. For Leo, this is your 11th house. So it deals with friendships, parties, get-togethers, gatherings, celebrations, your dreams, your friends, networking. I can definitely say like friends from the past coming back to you, reconnecting with friends, people you haven't seen for some time. Watch out for miscommunications with friends. That can definitely be a thing. So what does Leo need to know? King of Coins. This can be really wonderful for you when it comes under the guise of like work and work goals, professional goals, networking, dealing with somebody who may be an earth sign. So it can be a Virgo, or it can be a Taurus, or it can be a Capricorn. Somebody who you might meet through your social group who helps you when it comes to business stuff, having friends in high places, having somebody who's really going to help you expand when it comes to your professional life, or even when it comes to your finances. It's like meeting somebody who's like a real power player who comes into your life that really helps you become aware of what your goals could be. And you might meet somebody who you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I never thought I would connect with somebody of this status, and seeing how successful they are and the people they know and the way that they move about life. Like, I want to be friends with that person. And it being a sense of inspiration for you, especially for your professional life. All right. So now we're going to move on to Virgo. Virgo, this is happening in your 10th house. It is wild for your career. How are my Virgo and Virgo risings hanging in there with some of these mutable squares? You doing okay? Lots of confusing stuff with Neptune in your 7th right now, and eclipses in your 4th, and a retrograde in your 10th. You can be deciding that you want to go back to work. You might be transitioning and going back to work, looking for a new job, choosing between 2 jobs, deciding if you want to relocate for a job. It's all about work and how you are seen out in the world, especially professionally. Lots of cards, but that card and that card popped up. So 9 of Swords and the Star card. So healing from a situation, especially pertaining to work in your career. It might mean that like if your heart's not in what you're doing, or if you're feeling that there's like a lot of emotional distress that's going on, or just a lot of anxiety because you don't know how a work situation is going to play out. 9 of Swords is definitely anxiety ridden. Okay. And then the Star card is the card that comes after the Tower. It's about healing. So, you know, if you're waiting to hear back, if you're going to get the job, if you're waiting to hear back, if you go back to work, if they're going to be hiring you, if you're going to be able to have a full-time job or find a job, this is definitely something that I see manifesting. The good news is like, it looks to me like you're going to get some kind of news that's going to ease your fears. But definitely a lot of just change going on in the work field. So give that a little bit of time, manage anxiety the best that you can, and know that like this situation is going to be remedied. It's going to heal. All right. So next we have Libras. Libra, this is taking place in your 9th house. All this Gemini energy, and Gemini is a sister sign for you. So even though things are a little bit wackadoodle right now, it is very supportive with Saturn and Aquarius in your 5th to your creative process, your children, your love life. And it's almost like in the month ahead, a lot of things open up for you and you start to see the bigger picture. The bigger picture in education, the bigger picture in starting a process, or possibly being able to take a new course or start teaching or publishing something, going on a trip, right? All of these things are starting to kind of unfold, and it's going to take a little bit more time as we get into the second half of June for you to see the bigger picture. So for you especially, be cautious with planning trips because things are subject to change. High Priestess. I feel like that's also about trusting in your intuition, not just because of the card, but the ninth house is our beliefs. So when we have a retrograde here, we're realizing like we can change our mind, we can change our belief system, we can adopt a new belief system, we can start studying a new belief system. You might see through a book that you read or a podcast that you hear, or even a new person, a new guru that you connect to. It gives you the opportunity and the potential to see something that you never saw, and to have like clarity come into your intuition and be able to start trusting and believing in something again, especially your dreams, your visions, all of that stuff. It can be about some kind of spiritual development or some kind of an intuitive development, or just a gut feeling that you have about something that is going to manifest. For Scorpios, this is taking place in your 8th house, which is scary sometimes. The 8th house is all the things that you don't see. The 8th house deals with money that's owed to you or your partner's income. It can also deal with death, sex, taxes, insurance, or any joint resources that you might have with another person. It's a house that deals with intimacy. So when you have an eclipse in the 8th house and retrograde there can be a lot of like talking about a joint budget or talking about how much you want to spend on a situation. There can also be just changes going on with the partner's income and having to kind of pay debt off and like kind of learning not to lean so much on credit cards and loans and stuff where people might actually give you money as well. So it's a great time to come up with a budget. It's a wonderful time also to be talking to a partner about financial goals. Because of the squares from your 8th house to Neptune, Scorpio and Scorpio rising, be very careful with online transactions. You can find that, just like get into the habit. If you're not doing this, do this for the next month. Really look at your bank statements, look at your online transactions. You're more predisposed to having somebody kind of hack your debit card or any of your financial informations for there to be like a miscalculation and maybe you get double charged or something, Gemini. You'll be glad that you looked through some of this stuff because you're going to realize that like there was something overlooked that dealt with finances that you weren't aware of. If you need to still get your taxes paid or you need to get your taxes filed, do them during this retrograde. Go and find somebody to help you do it, even if you've got past years or anything else like that that you need to do. It's a wonderful time for you to be doing that and kind of getting ahead of that stuff. The Lovers. Yeah. Options, choices. This is more like a sexy card. So this is also really kind of talking about like going deeper sexually with a partner, being able to talk more about your feelings. It can be a wonderful time where you can just have a lot more of a sex life going on. It can be just like a little bit more of a spicier time. The Lovers are duality. So, with a retrograde, people who you have been with romantically in the past can come back. You can get a message, you can hear from them, you can get like somebody who's just a bit of a fan of yours or somebody who has been kind of loving you at afar. You might hear from somebody like that and you had no idea that they felt that way. Just watch out because the Lovers is double trouble. So it can also talk about temptation. I'm reading what you guys are saying. Yeah, it's fierce for Virgos. Somebody's debit card already got hacked. Oh, I've heard so many people who've been talking about this the last week, and also equally lots of people who have had issues with vehicles. Not paying attention when they're driving, getting into accidents, having cards broken into. So those are the two things that I'm seeing a lot of right now with that Mercury square Neptune. I'm sorry to hear you got hacked. Ugh. All right, so moving on to Sages. Gemini is your 7th house, so it deals with partnerships and relationships with a lot of planets there, with a retrograde there, with an eclipse there. It's a pivotal moment in time for Sagittarians when it comes to relationships. There is a renewal phase that is coming. So if you are somebody who is open to new relationships, then that's wonderful, but you still have to clear out the past in order to do that, so you're not seeing repetitive themes going on in relationships. So like if you had issues in a previous relationship and, you know, you meet somebody new, it might be some of the same red flags that are coming up or some of the same miscommunications. Equally also, people from the past can come back to you with a retrograde in your 7th house, or you're reevaluating, do I want to get back with that person? We haven't spoken for a while. Should we talk? Should they reach out? Should I reach out? There can be lots of back and forth in relationships. And the one thing that I will tell you is with squares to Neptune in your 4th is like, you want to watch out for not reminiscing too much about the past and over idealizing what it used to be, because you might be a very different person now. So going back to that person or going back to that partnership may not necessarily work. The card that I get is the 5 of Swords for you. And so that's kind of a harsher card, because I feel like this kind of indicates like, if there's been time that you haven't spoken to somebody, or if there's been a period of just like cooling off and you're trying to communicate, like it may still be more challenging to communicate. It might be harder to get the point across. You might feel like there's still conflict, there's still fighting, there's still back and forth. And mental anxiety definitely comes up with any of the swords, but out of 5, yeah, that and the Hermit card, it's basically saying like, okay, you're either dealing with like a Virgo, or you're dealing with a partner who's not communicating, they're checked out, they don't know what to say, they don't know how to handle things. And the Hermit card is encouraging you to go your own way, to really go and focus and sit and reflect and ask yourself like, okay, is this really what I want? So maybe a little alone time is just exactly what you need to be able to get some perspective. And for Capricorn, this is your 6th house with a retrograde there and an eclipse. You got to pay close attention to a couple things. One is your health. 2, it can also be with coworkers in the physical space that you're working in. Some of you guys might be starting a new job or finally going back into the office, or maybe you're working 2 jobs. Your schedule might change, but your health. And are you breathing, Capricorn? Because Gemini is the lungs. Are you breathing? Are you taking time to sit and breathe and get grounded? Do you need to reorganize your office? Are you relocating to a new office? Do you have a pet that's having a health challenge or a health issue? I get 5 of Cups for you. So I see that as being kind of like dealing with your moods. It can also be moving through disappointment and trying to clear out disappointment. Traditionally with this card, you see that there's 3 cups that are tipped over, and then there's 2 of Cups that are in the background. So that's reminding you that even if certain situations aren't happening, maybe you left an old job, maybe you left an old relationship, you had an old schedule and you were like, you're bummed out because now you're having to do something different. This is opening the door to better relationships, better partnership for you. And really the focus that you want to pay attention to in the next month is your moods. So you just had an eclipse in your 12th, so you're doing some healing in some sense. And now this is about being able to talk about your feelings. And maybe in processing feelings and talking about it more, you'll feel better. Maybe in getting organized and getting your space cleared, or getting into a new job or working somewhere new, like you're going to feel better. You don't quite see it yet. So watch out for the moodiness and for kind of being blue and bummed out. I think you're going to be feeling a lot better after this, after these transits this month. For Aquarius, so for you, this is your 5th house, fun, romance, passion, creativity, children. Gemini is a sister sign, so it's really great for being able to talk about all of these topics. Lots of Aquarians can and may get pregnant as a result of this transit. There may be a need to revisit and decide, do we want to have another kid? Do we want to have a kid in general? If it's not manifesting under the guise of children, it can be choosing between 2 lovers, or deciding whether or not you want to go back to a lover, deciding if you want to go back to a romantic partner, or revamping an old creative project. You know, the 5th house can also be about those who are self-employed. And if you're going to take a hobby and transition and make a hobby a side hustle, or even a personal business. But this is going to be much easier for Aquarians to deal with. A lot of the air signs are going to do very well this month. So what does Aquarius need to know? Queen of Coins. 2 things. One is this is health. So this does talk about like, you know, doing everything necessary to be on the top of your game, especially when it comes to heart health and what you're eating and taking really good care of your heart. But this is also talking about being solid financially and having some sense of gains that are coming in. So you might have a very lucrative idea. You might have a business that's like on the brink of like really going big and seeing a lot of financial return, really feeling super healthy and very grounded with that Queen of Coins. This can also be an indication of fertility, indication of pregnancy. So if you are somebody who is in the process of of trying to get more so healthy, kind of preparing so you can have your health right and your money right and everything, so you feel more comfortable in having children or paying attention to your children. It can also be spending time with a mother figure yourself. There's a lot of support when it comes to the element of earth. Very nice for Aquarius. And last but not least are my Pisces. For you, this energy is in your 4th house, a retrograde in your 4th house. You got a ton of planets that are also hanging out there and an eclipse there. So that tells me that there is a focus and an emphasis in the domestic realm, in your home life, in your family, where you're living. You may be deciding whether or not you want to move. You may be in the process of getting ready to move to a new place. Gemini can definitely represent movement, changeability. So I think that some of you guys are thinking about what needs to change in my house. Do we need a bigger place? Are we going to relocate? Are we going to buy something new, sell this house? Are we trading something out? Are we just rearranging furniture and repainting things? With the squares to Neptune, the one thing that I would say is that there can be this feeling of like not always feeling comfortable being around family and that there's so much going on in your home zone and also so much going on in your career zone that you're just like, you're overwhelmed emotionally and it's hard for you to deal with the amount of change that's going on in your life. And so tacking on domestic stuff on top of that can be overwhelming. A retrograde is a great time to get organized in the home or be looking for a new place. Pisces, be very careful when it comes to signing leases, buying homes, especially with the squares to Neptune. You want to look for, if you're going to buy a home, be very careful. Certainly the eclipse and the retrograde is bringing on new spaces, but do look for water damage, have homes evaluated, look at foundations, check plumbing. There can be all kinds of issues here, especially if you're looking at a bigger relocation, if you're like going back and forth between two places and you're going to move far away, make sure everything is really what it seems. Ace of Swords. So you're definitely having to sign a contract. It might be a lease. You might be having to have a serious conversation with a family member. Aces are new beginnings, so it's a new opportunity when it comes to how you think. It can be how you think about family, how you communicate to your mother-in-law, how you think about where you live and whether you're open to another city that you've never considered. Aces of Swords are also definitely times that there's very serious conversations or serious decisions that are made. So be aware that there can be some harsh words and exchanges with family, or you might have to drop some truth bombs on some family members or roommates this month. Oh my gosh, that was a lot. I'm so glad I got a chance to come and chat with you guys and be here. I will definitely be back next week. We're going to talk a little bit about the new moon eclipse and what's going to happen. We'll get into all the aspects. And later today, if you check out my channel, I've actually set it up. I'm going to come back at the end of today. Today's a holiday for those of you guys in the States. Happy Memorial Day. I'm going to come in and do a live with the super chat, and I'm going to be doing live readings. So check out that link and come back later if you want to get a reading. Those of you guys who don't know me, I'm usually booked out anywhere from like 1 to 3 months at a time. So I'm very busy. And I also understand that it's a very chaotic time right now. And not a lot of people can always have the time or the finances to be able to get a reading. So I'm trying to do this as often as I can. I'll probably do it at least once, if not twice a month, where I'll do a couple of hours of reading online. So maybe you want to get 1 or 3 cards from me and you want to do it at an affordable rate. Check that out. You can take a look at that. That will be on 5 p.m. and I am on Pacific time here in Las Vegas, Nevada. If you guys have any comments for me, leave them below. As always, I appreciate your likes, your shares, your comments, your subscriptions. You want to leave me a comment. I love being able to see what you guys have to say, especially tell me how this month turns out for you. What themes are you dealing with? What challenges are you dealing with? And give me ideas about other content that you guys want more information on, because I'm always looking to put new content on here. And if you haven't checked out my podcast that I have with the Peace Dealer, check it out. It's at the Midheaven Podcast. We have a YouTube and we have all of our socials. You can see mine below. We also have a new web store and we have all of the summer collections. We've got astrology bathing suits and towels and bags and all kinds of other shirts and pillows and other things. So check out the Midheaven shop if you want to see some fun astrology gear. And if you want to book a reading with me, I can be found at beyondtheveiltarot.com for tarot, clairvoyant, and astrological consultations. Until next time, I will see all of you guys very soon. Have a very happy month of June, and let's see what these eclipses have in store for us, shall we? You guys take care. I'll talk to you very soon.